And hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tech Informist. This is episode 88, recorded live on Monday, July the 13th, 2015. My name is Kevin Horvel. I'll be your host for this wonderful journey, and I'm joined by Sam Ventimiglia. Sam, how are you doing today?
I am good, sir. Good to be here.
Good. Welcome back, by the way. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah, so as people may remember on our previous couple of episodes that Brad said that he was going to have to work a little earlier this week at his cash paying job. So Sam has graciously joined us today to step in and fill Brad's shoes.
I'll try to. You can't fill shoes. You can only maybe hold shoes. So I'll try to see what I can do to try to keep this ship running in the straight direction that it always should be.
Okay, good. Well, again, glad to have you.
Thanks.
So, Tech Informist podcast for you tech enthusiasts that love to hear about technology. And you can find us at thetechinformist.com. You can send us comments, suggestions, and feedback to contact at thetechinformist.com. If you would like to help support the show, simply visit thetechinformist.com/support. And find all the different ways that you can support the show as well. So let's go ahead and get into some news. Last Wednesday, we kind of briefly touched on the big news that came out of Microsoft about laying off 7,800 people and doing a humongous, like $7.8 billion write-down of their Nokia purchase. And I know, Sam, you've kind of done some really good research on this and found some good stories to kind of link to for this. So let's go ahead and talk about that. I'll go ahead and let you kick this off.
So yeah, basically, I guess the first thing start off with what exactly is a write down versus a write off. I don't think people, at least I didn't understand the concept totally. So I looked it up, and essentially what Microsoft did was basically after they acquire Nokia, apparently companies are allowed to write down assets that are not going to ever make that value. So if they bought it for $7.8 billion and they say, look, it's never going to be worth that much and we're never going to have a chance to ever recoup that money or make that business unit profitable, they essentially just jettison it. And basically it's a tax. For this one, it's basically coming off their books. So they don't have to be taxed on those assets and inventory. And I guess if they had to write off other stuff, I guess companies wait to write multiple things off in a write down, so that way they don't have to do different write downs. I guess it looks bad for their investor portfolio. So essentially, Microsoft's like, look, we bought Nokia, it's not working out. So we are never going to recoup that value. We don't think that it's ever going to be 7.2 or higher. So we're just going to just cut our losses and basically write it down. So that's essentially what they did. So and that's basically how it works. Apparently it has something about goodwill. I'm not exactly sure. I guess when they acquire another company, it's considered goodwill or something. So
most people are familiar with the fact that Microsoft wrote down or wrote off, depending on which one it was, the Surface with, because they were not really selling that well. But they did that, and now look at where the Surface line is. It's a very respected device in the tech community. People really like it. It's doing great. They've redesigned it, and it's selling like hotcakes, and it's finally profitable for them. So is that something that you can see with Windows Mobile that they could possibly do? Because I know Satya mentioned, hey, we're not getting rid of Windows Mobile. We're still going to be making devices. We're going to trim the line, trim the fat. Going to reduce the number of devices that they release and still do it.
I think, I mean, obviously, it can't, it's, I guess it's just like any other business venture. I mean, other companies, have written, Rupert Murdoch has written off other, newspaper acquisitions that just didn't pan out. And so it just kind of depends. I think the Surface is a little different. And I was reading an article about it that somebody had made a point that the Surface, because of its being a PC, and there's more of an enterprise use and that kind of thing, and it had more of an installed base because it's a computer as opposed to the phone. It didn't have to really compete in the space for market share. They just had to kind of get the device on board. So, obviously Apple is really Apple and Google really control the market. Obviously, in the United States, I even read an article that says that Apple's encroaching on 50% um, market share in the United States for Apple devices, and I can only imagine when the 6S Plus and the 6S come out here soon, next couple of months. They they asked for 90 million units, and I'm pretty sure Apple's expecting to sell all 90 million and probably still have a shortfall. So it's kind of nice. I guess it would be nice if you had a business unit that would self-sustain itself. You never have to run an advertisement because people are going to go out and buy the 6S or 6S
Yeah,
Plus.
regardless. Yeah, you don't
Yeah, I
have to
mean,
see anything on TV.
all you have to do is just basically get the buzz out there, and even if you didn't, you'd always know it's coming. You know how Apple is. You know that they're about it, and that's what's interesting. They only put out a device or two, really, a year. It's really all they do, and the fact that they really don't even really deal with the budget segment. I mean, it's kind of a high end device. So, yeah, can it work? Sure. I think everybody's was already kind of shaky about Windows 10 Mobile, and after the Windows 8.1 supposed to be, that was the new resurrection from the phoenix from the ashes as far as getting Windows Mobile to work. I do honestly think, though, that maybe after Windows 10, if this doesn't get their 10% mark or whatever number that Redmond thinks that should be getting, that it might be time to think about maybe coming off of Windows 10 Mobile. I'd hate to see it. I mean, I'm a Windows Mobile enthusiast. I like it. I think I have Windows 10 thanks to your resurrection of my phone, Lazarus. I've been able to use the 10 technical preview, and it's clean. I like it. It's nice. Is it just basically in the United States, is it going to get traction because our carrier is going to talk about it? Are they going to push it? I mean, or is it just too late? Who knows? Developers, are they going to get on board? It's really, all of it's kind of up in the air, and really until we kind of hit the ground running and kind of see what's going to happen, I guess there's really no way to know for sure.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I mentioned in a Windows Central forum post. We were kind of discussing a few things, and I said, here's what Windows Mobile needs to survive. One, it needs strong carrier support. Every device that they release needs to be available on all 4 carriers. No ifs, ands, or buts. You have to make it available to as many people as possible. 2, you have to train your sales associates so they know what they're talking about. So when the customer walks in, they don't know more about the phones than the sales associates do. Because what a sales associate's going to do is they're going to listen to what the person that walks in that door wants, and then they're immediately going to push them towards whatever it is that's in their own pocket, because that's typically the only phone that they know anything about. When you walk into an AT&T store or maybe at a Verizon store, I don't know, because I mean, I'm not a Verizon customer, so I don't really know how their associates are. But when I walk into AT&T stores, and I know you're kind of the same way, you know more about the devices that they're selling than they do.
Usually, yeah.
And that I don't understand that from a kind of like a professional kind of job person, somebody that would work in that industry. I would want to know as much about the devices as possible, so that when that customer comes up, they finish the sale, they don't turn and walk out going, God, that person didn't know anything about about these phones. Why should I even buy their phone from here?
Right. And yeah, and I think that too. It's yeah, I did have frustrations with the carrier situation. I think also what really kind of did Windows the disservice back in the day was the fact that in the United States, carrier subsidies. I mean, you could walk in. I mean, if you had money to spend, imagine if you walked into your local Apple store or AT&T store, and they say, okay, here's your 6 Plus. Okay, that's $800. You're like, okay, I'm on. Yeah, they're not. I mean, it just wouldn't sell because most people aren't going to spend that money on the hardware.
Exactly.
And I think that and unfortunately, now it's just become a stigma. I mean, look what happened. I mean, how many articles did you read that were just really reactionary? It's like, okay, Windows is dead. That's the death knell of Windows. I mean, it was like, the rat trying to get off the sinking ship. And it's really like, and it's funny because a lot of these people who are writing these articles wouldn't know bupkis about a Windows phone because no one had ever used it. And I just think it's hilarious how people try to write an op-ed, and I realize it's an op-ed, so it's opinion. I mean, basically, it's what it comes down to.
Actually, I think they were posts that they already had queued up. They were just waiting for the right day to post
waiting for the trigger. It's like as soon because I guess they knew that it's a struggling business. They realized that Microsoft is trying to get traction in the space, and they're trying to get market share.
It's hip to go after Microsoft.
Yeah. So even if Microsoft would have Satya would have said everybody who owns an Android device is going to get a bar of gold straight from Microsoft, somebody would still write an op-ed about how that's not cool. So yeah, it's good to hate, I guess, is what it is. So it's a shame.
Yeah, it is. And the other aspect is that we need not just developers. We need the best developers. Right now the best developers, sorry, apologies to all of you that do develop for Microsoft, but the best developers develop for iOS and Android. That's just it. That's the reason why iOS apps are typically as good a quality as they are.
Right.
And there's a lot of money being left on the table from those developers by choosing not to develop for the Windows platform, because we know how passionate the Microsoft fans are. They will buy those apps. Look at what Rudy Wynn and Brandon Paddock for Tweetium and SixTag have done. I'm sure Brandon's made a nice chunk of change for the Tweetium app because
Right.
it's a great app.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I bought it as soon as I had the ability to do so, and I really like it. Matter of fact, I even on the desktop, I prefer it using the actual Twitter app. I actually was kind of funny because I really on my iPhone, I was kind of hoping that have a Tweety app for iPhone. I would actually buy it there. I mean, I care. I like the setup a lot better. So,
All right. I mean, when you consider Pocket Cast, which being a
yeah,
podcaster, it's one of my favorite apps.
I
I've
like it
bought
too.
it. I've bought it on Windows Mobile, Android, iOS, and even the desktop version. So I've
Right.
spent what $25 just on Pocket Casts overall.
Right, and I think that's what I think. The unfortunate thing is, unfortunately, battery life's great, the camera's nice, hardware's sexy hardware is good, but at the end of the day, they want apps, and that's it. And if the apps just aren't there, I mean, honestly, and I as much as I love Windows Phone, I couldn't recommend it to somebody. I just couldn't because I know in my mind what's going to happen. They're going to look for the apps. They're going to look for, well, how come, even my friend who's got a Windows Phone, he's got one from Cricket. He was asking, well, how come I can't get this app and this isn't really available? And I said, yeah. And so I thought to myself, and until I feel comfortable, I feel kind of hypocritical. It's like I love Windows Phone, but if somebody asked me, would you recommend Windows Phone to a person coming into the smartphone market, or somebody who's maybe trying to come off of looking for something different from iOS or Android, could you, in good conscience, recommend it? And that would be no, because I know in 6 months they're going to come to me and go, oh man, I used to use this banking. Where's Bank of America? Or hey, I used to use this bill tracker app and it's not there. Or how come when I use the Facebook, it doesn't have exactly the same kind of buttons and they're not laid out the same? And and unfortunately, it's a chicken and the egg. If developers aren't there to make apps, it won't get traction, and they say, well, we can't justify it because we won't make money. But there's got to be enough people that have got to just get on board and kind of, I guess, take the step off the precipice and just get in there and go, hey, I'm gonna now, with the fact that we have this universal app, we can write it, code it, and now really what Microsoft has attempted to do or is trying to do is they've removed the roadblock. They're going to say, because now they're going to say, now if you don't write for Windows Phone, it's just because you don't want free money. It's free money. It takes an hour to change the code. You put it in the compiler, wham, it's done, and you're good to go. So now if you're not doing it, it's either because you're in Snapchat where you just don't like Windows Phone, you could care less, or you just don't care about getting paid. I mean, just tell these developers, look, even if you make, I mean, what do we know? Imagine if we could sell an app and make an app and sell it for $1 and sell 10,000. That's $10,000 you made for writing a bunch of code, and
Right.
that's it. And
Yeah,
then it
for
just
maybe spending
snowballs.
a few hours.
And then 10,000 people turn into 100,000. It's like a YouTube thing. I mean, how do the people make money on YouTube? Well, it's because they start out with a small subscriber base and kind of rolls from there. And basically, I think the pitch should be these developers, hey, it's free money sitting there. There's people in India, there's people in the Middle East, there's people in Indonesia, Europe, United States, and yeah, there might be not a lot of installed user base in the United States, but if you got 7 billion people and 3% of them have a Windows Phone, well, where do you know? I mean, you got some clients out there, and it's free money. You don't have to worry about getting it on board. It's already there. It's just money to take out of the cookie jar. So go ahead and do it. And I think that if we can get it to that point, I think that it has a chance. But if the apps just don't develop and the developers don't get on board, I hate to say it, but I just don't see it really lasting that much longer. And it's a shame because I absolutely love it. It's a real travesty. I think there should be all three platforms. I believe there should, that only helps consumers. The more options they have, the more ability they have to choose.
Yeah, the more
The better it is
people
for
that are
people.
involved in innovating. I mean, and
Right.
changing things.
Yeah. I mean, it's if Windows Phone dies, it'll be a loss for obviously the Windows Phone users, but just in general, overall competitive ability of other platforms.
Yeah. So, as mentioned before, Nadella still says, hey, over the next 2 years, we're definitely still going to be making hardware.
Right.
and going after the Windows fans with obviously the flagship kind of style spec devices,
Right.
and the emerging markets. So the 500 line, the 600 line, stuff like that, those will still be there, and then enterprise line. What would you say would be a good comparison for an enterprise style device? Would you say that's like the 800 line or the 700 line?
Yeah, and that's what. Then I guess of that plan, that's the three-prong approach. That's the one I think is the most kind of shaky as far as what device would you give to an enterprise customer?
I'd
Obviously,
want to give them a flagship, honestly.
right, exactly. But I mean, but if you think about it in logical terms, like let's say I work for the Federal Reserve for one of the district banks. We got about 1,200 employees. You know, how would you want to sell that? Do you want to say, okay, well, look, we have 1,200 employees. We're going to sell you all these enterprise devices, but they're $600 a piece, as opposed to, what do you really need? Because I don't know. I think that you would need a mid-level device, but then it just seems like Microsoft's thing is they want to kind of get away from having fragmented device structure. They don't want to have a low end and a middle end and 730 and an 830 and a 930 and a 1030. I mean, they want to kind of pare that offerings down. So I'm thinking, what would you push them towards? And I would think, if anything, you'd want to push them towards the 435, 535 end. But then are you going to have enough specs to make enterprise work flawlessly? Right. Or is it
especially when you factor in that this would be the employee's secondary device?
Right.
They'll have their personal device and their work device.
Right. And you're not going to really have to worry about a camera so much, at least not the rear facing. Maybe if they're doing Microsoft Link, because that's what they use at our bank. And it's funny because I'd never even heard of that application until I started working there. That they don't use Skype. So obviously a front facing camera is really going to be important, but really just to have the specs. So really, I would think you would want to just, if you were going to make, you're going to make two flagships for size. I know they're kind of going after that Apple kind of model where they're making two of the same phone with different size points. And you got the low end. I think they need to make one essentially mid-range 735, 830 device and make that for business, or make it for enterprise, or something like that. I think that you're going to have to do that. I just can't imagine you can sell $600 devices to an entire company full of people, especially if you got 10 or 20,000 employees. Why would, at that point, you could just get iPhones and then just reverse engineer them to work. If you're going to spend that, and that way everybody will like it because they probably already have an iPhone. You don't have to teach them the awkwardness, because everybody at our bank now uses BlackBerry. They complain about it all the time because of I just wish I could use my iPhone because I already know it. So there's some people that have never used a BlackBerry at all. Right. They have to use those, and people complain about them all the time. They're antiquated and they're old, and they use them for work. They're obviously not gaming on them. They're not, social media on them.
So which BlackBerry devices are they using?
I think
the old.
Yeah, I don't even know what they are because I don't have one.
Torches?
Yeah, I think they're old BlackBerry Torches, I think.
Okay.
They have the physical QWERTY keyboards on them. But they complain about them too, and they're really not even using them for anything but work. So just getting email, really, and that's just what they use them for, and making phone calls. So I don't know. I think they'd have to come in with some kind of a mid-range, and maybe they should just offer one. It's like, okay, this is the enterprise phone. It is the, 840. That's the enterprise phone. That's all we're selling, because we don't need to sell multiple, because we just have to have something that enterprise can use. Just make sure the specs are there, make sure it works hardware-wise, and then just doesn't worry about the size, because that's really not the concern, and make that the one device that they come in. One low end, one enterprise device, and then two flagship devices for enthusiasts. I think that if I were running the show, which I'm not, unfortunately, for me, yeah, but
otherwise you'd have a few more zeros in your tax returns.
I was going to say a few more zeros, and I'm driving a little better car, but it's okay. But yeah, I think they're going to have to come up with some kind of, and that's where the enterprise part was kind of like, I understand the low end. Obviously, they're doing it now with the 635 and the 400 series and 500, and obviously the flagship stuff. But I think they'd have to come up with that. The one thing is, again, in true Microsoft fashion, they really haven't talked about what they're going to do. There's really nothing. I mean, maybe they're just keeping quiet because they don't want to. I don't know why. It just, again, they always talk about, in vague terms. I know Satya is really good about, talking about that kind of thing, but I really don't see where they're going to go. I mean, there's nothing you can say, okay, like the enterprise thing, how are they going to handle that? You don't really know. It's always speculation. And so, I'm just hoping to see, I guess, everybody should just kind of calm down, realize that I think from a business standpoint, the write-down is a good thing. They've realized, okay, this isn't going to work. We don't want to be taxed $7.8 billion on our books. Let's get rid of it. And kind of come back to our core focus, which is the services aspect of it. And also, I feel bad because 7,800 people lost their jobs. I mean, those are 7,800 people that were talented Microsoft employees or Nokia employees or whatever that now have to either find their way into other platforms. Maybe they go work for Apple. Maybe they go work for Google. I don't know. I mean, obviously there's some talented people there that lost their jobs. It's unfortunate. But unfortunately, they always say that's the business of the business, right? It's a shame. Hopefully, those people can get reintegrated, and those people who are innovators and idea makers, and those 7,800 people can latch on somewhere else and still contribute well to Microsoft or just generally in phones. So hopefully that.
Right. So when it comes to OEMs, do you think that's something that maybe Microsoft is hoping that more OEMs will jump on board and say kind of do the HTC One route, throw out their current flagship and just throw Windows Mobile on there as well?
Yeah, I think I guess there's two schools of thought there. You could think, well, do they want to come up with a completely new device? I use the HTC One M8 for Windows. It's nice, and the one benefit of having it is one, HTC doesn't really have to worry about changing the hardware. They just throw some software in there, wham, you're ready to go. You can just basically set it up the way you want. And the second thing is, if you're looking for cases or accessories or hardware, they're available. You just got to buy the Android version. You're right there. So if you want a screen protector, and that's always the issue with the Lumias, screen protectors are hard to find. You never can find an outer box. Accessories when it comes to
you
cases.
can forget an outer box for
a
Windows device.
Or my favorite, I use those Urban Armor Gear cases, and there's just no chance. You're just not going to. It's just because they don't sell enough devices. So I think they're hoping the OEMs will jump on board, and I don't know. Are they going to? Are they going to sweeten the pot? I mean, they're going to say, hey, look, HTC. Hey, look, Samsung. Hey, look, LG.
Well, the software is already free.
Right. I mean, so it's like just, basically it just comes down to, again, it always makes me wonder, why do OEMs not pick up on it already? Why are developers not doing it? Is it because they have this intrinsic, I don't like the platform kind of thing? Or is it just because they're just like, we're not going to worry about it because it doesn't matter? Because I think Microsoft has now finally decided to open it up. And they're saying, look, here's the software, here it all is, guys, do what you want with it. I would like to see a real good Samsung device, although I'm not a big fan of Samsung's Android offering because I'm not a big fan of TouchWiz at all. But I think it'd be nice to see a good, I'd like to see on a Galaxy S6 running Windows. I think that would be incredible. Because, and obviously it would solve one of their major problems is battery life. The S6 on Android's battery is terrible. It's like 3 hours of screen on time or something. And people even made a comment with the M8 as an example that just by having Windows on it, because it was more, I guess, clean, the battery was better just by the sheer fact of the operating system it was running. So you already get an improvement there just from throwing on a different operating system. So it works out pretty good. And so I really think that, I think OEMs, I'm hoping that if they don't jump on board, that Microsoft will maybe do something to kind of get them on board, maybe sweeten the pot, maybe do something just to kind of get them to, I guess, get some traction there. Blue makes some pretty good phones. You got LG made the Lancet. Obviously it's just for Verizon. So again, to your earlier point of the carrier thing, it'd be nice if HTC made the M8 for Windows or M9 for Windows, and Verizon, T-Mobile, they all have it. Even the Cricket offerings, if they offer it in their, I don't know how their services work. I know they're kind of more low end, but just the ability to have a Windows phone available on every platform would be great. So,
or like an LG G3, LG G4, something like that would be fantastic.
Obviously, I mean, you can do it. And really, if the main part is we always know is the main problem with anything is hardware. That's where the cost suck is. It's never the software. They lose money on hardware, making Xboxes and PlayStations. The money's made in the software and stuff like that. So I think they would. I think honestly, if they can really see it, again, as always, can these companies make money off of it? That's all that matters to them. They don't care about anything else, but can it turn a profit? Will it affect our bottom line? Will it keep us in the black? And if it does, great. And if it doesn't, they won't touch it. So I think they've had some bad taste from the older Windows offerings before, the HTC 8X and stuff like that. So I think they will, if anything, just to kind of throw some lip service. And I think Microsoft can maybe help them along, maybe give them some incentive. I don't know, maybe some development incentive. I don't know what they can really do. But yeah, I think OEMs are going to be critical because obviously Microsoft doesn't want to make hardware. I mean, it's not in their structure. It's not in their strategy. And so we'll see. I mean, hopefully they'll jump on board. I said HTC, LG, and Samsung would be great if they could make a phone for Windows. It'd be awesome.
Yeah. Now looking at the IFA, the IFA conference that'll be coming up in Berlin, September 4th through the 9th. Today it was they released a press release that says Microsoft CVP Nick Parker is going to deliver a keynote showcasing new Windows 10 devices. Now, looking through this, it let's see, will demonstrate a breadth of new Windows 10 devices, including tablets, two-in-ones, premium notebooks, gaming devices, and all-in-ones that will light up the Windows 10 experience for customers. Now, of course, in no mention there that they mention Windows Mobile, but
Right.
who knows what else will be mentioned in there as well. Plus, you'll have Nadella. He'll likely be there. Terry Myerson's going to have to be there because,
Right.
well, he's now the Windows Mobile guy.
Yeah, I think that's going to be, and this is going to be, the IFA is going to be the first real major conference post this trauma of the write down. So it's kind of going to be interesting to see. I think it's going to be kind of critical, and hopefully Microsoft doesn't miss the opportunity here, because they're kind of reeling in the PR space with this. I mean, a lot of people have taken this write down and really kind of run off the rails with it and kind of say Windows is dead, and then they're jettisoning that whole entire platform. But the problem is, as we both know, that perception becomes reality. Even if it's not the reality, Microsoft doesn't, and a lot of companies don't do a good job of getting ahead of that kind of negative kind of spin and kind of staying ahead of it. And they need to come out of IFA and say, look, here's the 940, here's the 940 XL. We're definitely here for the next 48 months or 24 months or whatever we're doing. We're looking to establish OEMs. We are behind Windows 10 Mobile 100%. We want it to work. We're going to make it work, and we have to be confident. Even if you know in your heart of hearts that maybe you don't want to be in it, you can't let on that at this point, because the second that they decide that they're going to hedge or go, we're looking at other options. Anytime they look not confident, that's not going to look good, because investors are not going to be there, developers are not going to be there, and the press is going to just hammer them, and they're basically going to say, we'll see. And that's the thing. I mean, even in Apple's beginning stages, they always came off as a competent, we're going to make Windows Phone or iPhones work. We're going to make sure that these devices get traction. And now look at them. I mean, they did the same thing. They handled more of the marketing and the PR and the discussion of Apple's products. They handle it really a lot better than Microsoft does. And I think if Microsoft comes out of IFA and says, look, we're behind this, like at Build. I mean, how amped were you after Build? I was stoked. I mean, I was.
You see all that stuff and you're like, awesome.
And HoloLens and the new flagships and Windows 10 Mobile and Windows. I mean, you were just like, I mean, after Build, you were ready to run through the wall. I mean, you were stoked. I was too. And then it just kind of lost steam. And I think at IFA, they really need to reestablish their commitment to Windows Phone if they really care. Now, if they don't, is it because they're giving up, or is it just typical Microsoft approach of it's like, yeah, it'd be great if it works, but we're just gonna, we'll see, we'll assess and evaluate at a later time. I think they need to come out and really be strong and really come out and say that they're really behind this platform, if they really are, and really give the people who are on the Windows ecosystem really something to hang their hat on and continue forward. And maybe somebody watching goes, yeah, I mean, this Windows thing, maybe I ought to give it a try, because it starts with one person. If they can get some traction, it'll snowball. Look at Apple. They got traction. They had carrier support, carrier subsidies, and now all of a sudden, look at that. Now they got to a point where they just have to exist and put out a device, and that's it. All you gotta do is be. And I think Microsoft doesn't have to chase that, but I think Microsoft, in order to exist in the space, they have to take, you have to do it what works, and that's what works. They have to change minds, and that takes, a commitment from their part. They have to be totally 100% on board and even present that to prospective developers, consumers, and investors.
Yeah, commercials that they'll be releasing for all this, that's definitely going to have to show the interaction and the compatibility between the Windows 10 on desktop and laptops and the Windows 10 mobile. You've got to show how that is going to interact with each other, and show that on commercial after commercial after commercial after commercial.
I mean, look at Samsung. God, I mean, there was one stretch, I think I was watching TV one night, and I swear there had to be 50 Samsung commercials on. I thought, man, if I see another S6 commercial, I think I'm going to be physically ill. But that's the thing. I mean, and here in St. Louis, and this is not going to resonate to anybody else who's not regional. I don't know if you remember those commercials on the radio for the Brofs, the company that used to do the double wides.
Brofside sells double wides, $19,995.
And here's the thing. You know why you hate that commercial? And I used to turn my radio off because it was so off-putting to hear that stupid commercial, that guy talking. But here's the thing. That commercial, you haven't heard that commercial probably in a year, and you know the tagline like clockwork.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't think Brofs is even in
No, I think
in
they're
business
gone.
anymore.
I know they were south of Festus there, but like I said, again, Samsung has decided we're going to be just overwhelming. We're going to basically blast you in the face with ads, and then advertising works. I know, and like I said, it's one of those things where I think honestly they probably got people to buy the new Samsung devices because it was sleek and it was different, and even with the non-removable, they changed the removable battery and the SD card. They were just overwhelming with advertisement, and Microsoft just doesn't bring that to the space. I mean, even when they came out with the Cortana, my brother comes up, hey, that Cortana is pretty cool. How can I get that on my iPhone? It's like even the commercial doesn't even push the heart. I mean, you didn't even know it was a Windows phone. I mean, it's like you see this Windows phone, but as we both know, because and then like the people in the chat room are aware because they're in the know, the end users really aren't that into this. There's not we're in the minority. You know, the power users, the tech enthusiasts when it comes to phones. People just want their phones to work, and they just care if it and then they go with the herd. You know, individuals are smart, but the herd is kind of dopey, and so you know they kind of gravitate to what everybody else is doing. And so, you know, that pack mentality is something that Microsoft really never has gotten on board with, and I think they finally have taken some damage here, and they really need to get out and control. They need to control it, and they need to control the discussion and the dialogue about how they're committed to Windows Phone, even if they're not 100%, or even if they're kind of like shaky, even if they're kind of like, we all know that it's a treacherous road the next 24 months, but they got to come out swinging, and if you're going to go down fighting, and you know, and give us some hope, because I love Microsoft. I mean, I enjoy it. I have my iPhone. I like it too. Android, I can appreciate it all, but because I'm a tech enthusiast, and that's why we do what we do on this show. But I think, you know, again, like I said to my earlier point, I think if we're down to just Android and iOS, and I think if Windows Phone kind of dies, I think it's just going to be bad all the way around for everybody, and consumers just won't have that option. And I think honestly, if people gave it a chance, and I think if everything were totally equal, where apps were totally equal, like if your app worked and your app worked, and you just laid all the devices down on the table and said these all have the same apps, which one you want, I think you'd get a lot more people. And I know I would go out and say, buy a Windows Phone. You will absolutely love it. You will get to the point where you really like the UI, you really like the interface, the integration. And like I said, now it looks just like your computer. And I even showed it at work. I had the phone up and I had my laptop, and I even showed the settings menu and say, look, it looks almost the same. And everybody's like, yeah, man, it's cool. So it's easily you know, people are starting to use Windows 10. They'll see how easy it is to use for their phone, and it'll be like seamless. And they need to push that. And I think as it gets to market and people can see it, I think they can get some traction. And I just hope that they commit to it, because at this you got to push the pedal to the floorboard now, because if you don't, it's definitely going to die. And the only chance that you have to save anything is go all the way out. Just let it fly and push it, and act like if Windows Phone dies, Microsoft goes with it. Obviously, we know that's not the case because of enterprise and their PC, but Microsoft needs to attack this as a problem that if the Windows Phone fails, they'll fail as an organization. I think if they approach it that way, and they can see that it's got some, get these carriers on board. I mean, I refuse to admit that Microsoft as a corporation can't do something a little bit more to either help push them along, incentivize them. You know, if you have to, you know, buy your way in. if you gotta help AT&T out by scratching their back a little bit to get them to kind of get on board with getting those devices pushed, you got to do it. At this point, you kind of got to eat a little crow. And I think Microsoft has done that with Windows 10 and opening it up to development. I think they've kind of decided.
Nadella has kind of done that a lot with, you know, one of the articles I was reading, I guess it might have actually been in the Forbes article, that when they mentioned about Steve Ballmer coming down to Silicon Valley, you know, kind of the mindset was that Ballmer was coming down to, you know, either like buy a company, or, you know, buy it and ruin it, or just come down to just real aggressive. And Nadella is a little bit more passive and wanting to work with other companies and to help grow each other's platforms. So I think the mindset is gradually changing in the right direction. And hopefully he can get this done with, you know, the executives with these big carriers.
Right. And like I said, and just like anything else, I've worked for a large company, and fundamental paradigm changes in companies are glacially slow movement. And the problem is, we all know we're in the now, right? What's happening now? What can be done in the next 6 months? What's in the next 12 months? What, you know, and things like that just don't happen like that. Whenever, you know, Microsoft is fundamentally changing the way they approach their business model. I mean, that's something that, first of all, for a company that size to just shift on a dime is really, it's pretty remarkable that they even have some light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, they need to. I mean, it takes a long time. That's a big company. Microsoft is enormous. It's a huge company. And can you imagine Apple having to try to shift totally how they operate business, and then all of a sudden expect it in 6 months to be totally like, okay, we're here, we're good. It's not as easy as going in and changing your T-shirt. I mean, it takes a long time for these companies to really to change the way they fundamentally operate. And really, Microsoft is doing that. And I think people need to give Microsoft a little slack. I know they're not, because it's nice to hate on them, but really, you have to understand that things take time. Unfortunately, in the fact that you're behind in the space, you don't have a lot of time. So unfortunately, the time is the one thing you don't have. But if anything, the one thing you can control is your enthusiasm, your ability to sell it. And Microsoft, just until build, this last year's build, they really never tried to sell it. And I think you gotta make people believe that your product is the best. And the way you do it is you have to personify that your product is superior to both. Even if everyone's like, well, it's not better than an iPhone. Well, I can get Snapchat on iPhone. Well, who cares? Most people don't want Snapchat. That's great, but we'll get Snapchat eventually, because eventually, if you get enough traction, Snapchat's going to have to naturally come on board. They're going to see that they can't basically just sideline them. They're going to have to get on board. And that's how you get them. You don't go hat in hand to them. You say, you will develop for our platform because now we're at 10% and we're gaining. And now you're going to have to get on board, because if you don't, you're going to be out. And they got to play hardball a little bit, and they can. What do they have to lose? They've already written down Lumia. So, I mean, the Nokia division, they've written it down, and they're not really seeing to lose anything except for some face. But really, at this point, they're not. It's not like they're going to shut Windows Phone. Apple loses iPhone, Apple's done as a company. Really, we all know that iPhone drives Apple's market share.
Yeah, that's their biggest
right.
product.
So they if they were in the same position, they would definitely be on the hot seat. Whereas Microsoft's really not in that thing. They're kind of like, well, but I think unfortunately sometimes because they're not in that position, I think that kind of projects itself. I think Satya kind of, yeah, well, we're really not going to worry about it because really that's not our bread and butter. And if it dies, well, we're still going to be here. Well, and I think you can't approach it that way. Even if you have to do the tried and true corporate toe the line, that kind of thing. So you gotta push it, and I think they're gonna try, and I hope they do, because at IFA, that's really IFA is gonna be my benchmark. If they're really gonna stay on board, I like to see them come out and really start swinging and get aggressive with these companies. Really let them know that you're here to stay and you're a player, and you might be the small man on the campus, but you still have some traction and you still have some play, and you want to be in the space and you want to expand that space, and you're going to take their share from them. Be a little aggressive.
Because Windows 10 will be out for just a little over a month at that time that IFA will be. And they should be just probably a few weeks to a month or so out from releasing these new Windows 10 mobile devices.
So I think they have a good position.
We'll have a really good idea of the future of Windows Mobile once September comes.
I agree. Like I said, I'm still excited, but yeah, I hope they do the right things. I'm really looking forward to it. We'll see what they do in the next 6 months for sure.
Yeah, because we've got another couple months of getting new Windows 10 mobile previews for our current devices.
And I'm really happy with 10.166. It's really really
good
smooth.
Now.
It has its bugs. I mean, like I said, I was telling you the AT&T app doesn't. That's the only one I haven't gotten to work all the way. But as far as everything else, I mean, the mail client, like you said, it was nice when you mentioned it turning into landscape so you can see how it looks. That's the same, and it is. If you turn it landscape, it looks exactly the same on the desktop. And the
settings app's even the same way. You hit settings, and instead of looking at it vertically, you switch it to landscape, and then it's like, oh my god, that is actually Windows 10 for desktop. So it's the exact same view.
And I think it's good. So yeah, I mean, I'm really enjoying it. There's still some performance issues. Like I said, sometimes when I go back to my start screen, it restarts and it kind of hangs for a bit. But honestly, Windows kind of did that anyway. 8.1 kind of does that sometimes, where it kind of hangs and it has to render. So I'm used to it. But I mean, as far as the aesthetics, as far as how the tiles look, I mean, I'm really excited about it. And really, this is even close. Like the desktop build is really nice and polished too. But that's close to RTM. I mean, that's close to release. This is still a couple months away, and it's still. I mean, I'm excited. I mean, for the first time, I really feel confident that if we can just get people to try it out, I think they'll be pleasantly surprised. And I might just decide to go ahead and start pushing Windows Phone to people anyway, and just say, I might lose a friend or two, or they might tell me I'm crazy. But I think if they got it in their hands, it'd be good. So, it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, EFO will be good. I'm hoping that Microsoft comes out and really does what they need to do as far as getting some positive words out there for the operating system.
Right. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on because that's not the only
Okay.
thing that we wanted to talk about. And I'm going to go ahead and skip the one story and move into yesterday. We got some pretty bad news for everybody that's fans of video gaming in general. That Nintendo CEO Satoru Iwata, apologies for how I'm butchering the name, passed away at age 55. So again, fairly young, similar to like Steve Jobs, but the result or the cause of death has been attributed to growth discovered on his bile duct, so which resulted in his absence at last year's E3. Now, he had actually began working at Nintendo back in the 1980s as a programmer, working on at the HAL laboratory, which kind of probably the most popular product to come out of the HAL laboratory was the Kirby series. So if you know Kirby and all that,
Right.
the
little pink,
pink
fluffy
blob.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was kind of the man behind that. And he became director of the company in 2000 and appointed president of Nintendo in May of 2002. So he oversaw the launch of the Nintendo DS, 3DS, Wii, and the Wii U. Now, granted, the Wii U hasn't been as successful as most people hoped and expected, but again, it goes back to games and software. The games weren't really out there available at launch, but now they are. So sales, I think, have kind of picked up. Splatoon and Smash Brothers, and all the latest Mario Karts and things like that.
Right. Yeah, it's a shame. Anytime you see any kind of CEO or somebody who's kind of revolutionary or who's been in those kinds of large companies, the Nintendos, the Apples that kind of pass away, especially at 55, at such a young age, you would like to have seen him maybe be there longer, maybe not maybe the CEO role, maybe at some point, but at least in the company. And it's a shame. You don't want to see that happen to anybody. You'd like to see everybody live a long, full life. And I know 55, it doesn't seem, because I'm 15 years away from that date. I'm hoping to have a couple more, drops in the tank left. I'm making at least a 70.
There you go.
It's a shame, but yeah, the only thing I would say is, where's Nintendo? It's a shame because Nintendo really isn't the company it used to be, and it's again, it comes down to, I kind of akin Nintendo to the Windows Phone thing. It's kind of the third wheel kind of thing. It's just kind of dropped off. And when I was a kid growing up, Nintendo was it. I mean, it was
Nintendo was it, and then
Sega,
Sega.
Kind of, but it was like Nintendo. I mean, that was it. Everybody had one. Everybody knew it, and even people who really didn't know anything about video games, they knew the word Nintendo. It had brand recognition. You knew it, even if you oh yeah, those are those silly game things. Okay, great. You Nintendos. And that's what my grandma used to call Nintendos. Okay, whatever. But it's a shame to see. Hopefully they can. They've appointed some people, a couple of people that are underneath him to kind of run it, and they're gonna, I guess, have to look for a new CEO, and it'll probably be one of those two people that are kind of taking the wings right now and kind of seeing what's going on.
Yeah,
until really kind of get into some prominence again. I really hope that. I don't know what they're going to do as far as like hardware with a Wii kind of thing.
They keep talking about their next console. I think is codenamed NX or something. I believe.
Yeah, like I said, unfortunately, again, I think as always, I think they kind of got bit in the butt with the with their Nintendo DSs with really mobile. I mean, really mobile gaming really is pretty much submarine there. I mean, DS was like, PS Vita. I had a PlayStation PSP, I had a Vita, and obviously it died pretty quick because it's pretty. But everybody had a DS, and look how many people had a DS. And now
Game Boys.
Look around. Game Boys and DSs and XLs, and they come up with all these lines. And again, now you look around and you go, do you see? When was the last time you seen a kid actually playing a Nintendo DS? I haven't seen one.
They play iPads and iPhones.
Yeah, it's just really. They really, and the fact that it's a shame because Nintendo's groundbreaking. They made video gaming. I'm convinced of it. Some of the best games ever made that still play today were made by that company, and there were some great minds that come out of it. Yeah. So hopefully they can that won't be too bad of a setback for them as far as getting some vision and getting a new CEO in there to kind of maybe spur some discussion, maybe get that company back into a limelight, which is where it should be. It's a shame Nintendo as an afterthought shouldn't be. It almost hurts to say the words that Nintendo isn't a real major player in the video game space.
Especially when you factor in the Nintendo itself, not in its current form, obviously, because video games haven't been around that long, but Nintendo as a company has been around since like the late 1800s.
Oh yeah, I mean, the old pachinko
It's
machines, I think,
crazy.
is what they used to make. Yeah. So yeah, hopefully, like I said, it's a sad thing when anybody dies that young. Hopefully, they can get the company back good, and and condolences to anybody in his family and friends and work coworkers. It's a shame to see anybody that lose their life that young. It's just kind of a sad situation.
Yeah. So in the meantime, Shigeru Miyamoto, who is
Oh yeah,
well known as the like the father of Mario and
yeah.
Zelda. I mean, he is. I mean that would be that'll be a very sad day in the world when he passes, because
Oh
he
yeah.
is so well loved in the world of
And
video games and
and just what a
entertainment.
visionary! What a visionary! I mean, that guy. I mean, when it comes to video games, he is video game innovation. He is video. I mean, when you think of that, and you hear his name, even to people who don't really are casual kind of video game people, you hear the name, you know who he is. I'm like,
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, and it's
Yeah.
he's just such a pioneer in this in the field. And I like I said, it's hopefully I'm glad he's involved, because I think he's, at least from a creative aspect, he'll really have some good ideas. That he only with age do you get better, as far as the first 40 years is living, the second is trying to make sure you hone that craft. Him being at the helm and being in some kind of a high level part of Nintendo will only help them. I can hopefully hope they can take some ideas and get the new Zelda, Super Mario Brothers, and kind of run with it and make it the new thing that brings them back into prominence.
Yeah. So he's going to jointly run the company with Genyo Takeda,
Okay,
Takeda.
sounds
Again,
good
I
to me.
apologize for
Yeah,
butchering names and stuff like
I
that.
think they'll let it slide for you. It's okay.
Yeah. So no, it was kind of some sad news to come out yesterday. And now, actually, another thing I wanted to talk about was, we kind of briefly touched on this before the show, was about the stem cell dental implants can help grow new teeth right in your mouth.
Sweet.
Yeah, this is very, it's another one of these popular science stories that you kind of see, and the image that accompanies the story, which again, all stories are going to be available in the show notes, so you can go read and look at these yourself. Human molar scaffolding. Columbia University Medical Center, Dr. Jeremy Mayo has unveiled a technique that directs the body's stem cells into a scaffolding that will aid in the regeneration of a new tooth. It's just crazy to see that they're actually going to be doing something like this. I mean, you look at it and it looks similar to, it looks like a waxy gauze.
Yeah, and actually, you know what it kind of reminds? It looks like a 3D model, is what it looks
It
like.
does. It looks like it's something that was 3D printed.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, especially because that again, that has a universal kind of draw, because we all have teeth. At least we
Yeah.
all start out with teeth. So
Right.
dental health is something that you really want to keep on. So
Yeah, because that's one of the worst things that you can have happen, is to have to, lose your teeth. Whether you only lose a couple of them, and then you have to get, little partials, or you just have to have them all pulled for whatever reason, and have to go with the full set of dentures, which is still not the same. And you got to worry about them falling out. We've all
right,
seen.
glue and epoxy, and then have them like posted in, and I mean, that's a whole big mess too. Any kind of dental or orthodontic surgery is always any surgery is always a risk. So yeah, I mean, if this is kind of low impact, low cost way to kind of get it done, I mean, it sounds good. It's definitely, when you first see the article headline, you're like, oh, you
Yeah.
immediately kind of want to reel back and go, yeah, okay, how's that going to work? But when you read the article and look at it, it's interesting. It looks and it looks awesome. It's really kind of innovative, and it just goes to show you how there's a problem. Let's solve it. Let's come up with good ways to attack the problems. And
Right.
it's even though it's a little kind of like, I don't know if I can really, how's that going to work, or how's that going to be implemented to regular people. But yeah, it's good to see that they're pushing the dental space, I guess, as it were.
Yeah.
Maybe
So
Windows 10 mobile for teeth. I don't know. They can do something like that. Put little
yes.
billboards or something like that on there. I don't know.
Yeah. So this process can possibly regenerate an anatomically correct tooth in just 9 weeks from
That's
implementation.
incredible.
Sorry. By using a procedure developed in the university's tissue engineering regenerative medicine lab, Dr. Mayo can direct the body's own stem cells towards the scaffold, which is made of natural materials. Once the stem cells have colonized the scaffold, a tooth can grow in the socket and then merge with the surrounding tissue. Crazy stuff, but
That's nuts.
it sounds really cool. Hopefully,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
have to. I mean, I've had bad dreams before where I've like lost teeth, and it's one of the
like pulling them out, like kind of like the flies with chunks of like gum.
It's
And like,
that's some scary stuff. You like wake up, you move your
it's
tongue around your teeth. You're like, oh,
horror
good, they're
movie
all
kind of
still
esque
there.
kind of. It's like horror movie level stuff. Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah. So interesting stuff, and again, just technology and science and medicine. You just never know what what they'll be able to do.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what they're going to plan on doing in the next 10 or 15 years. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's it is
Grow a
very
grow
very
new, like say, grow a new head, because I could use a new head, because this one's not really. It's like 40 years. It's kind of not. Maybe they grow Brad Pitt's head. That'd be great. Maybe
Let's
not the
change
brain.
this up a little bit.
Yeah, let's totally, like, it's just like a shell on the back of a phone. I want orange. Yeah, let's get a new head. Today I want to be Brad Pitt. Let's keep the brain good, because I don't want the Brad Pitt brain. But I'd like the Brad Pitt look. That would help all. Yeah, it'd be good.
There you go. All right, so let's go ahead and hop into app and entertainment picks. And Sam, I'll let you go first as I type mine in the show notes.
Okay. I thanks to my stepdaughter, I've kind of started to get into like this Minecraft, because I used to watch her play it, and I go, okay, it's so popular. It's got to have some kind of draw. Something is making these kids play it. So let me try it out. So, I bought it for my Windows phone. I also have it for my iPhone. And I think I bought it for my Nexus tablet. So I have all three platforms. So that's what's good about it. You can play it, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, I really kind of enjoy it. I still don't get it. She has to. It's interesting having a 13-year-old kind of. No, you need to do this and do this, and how come this doesn't work? And you gotta. And I really haven't dug into. I don't have time to dig into like the wikis and really get into the meat of it. I just like playing around it. So I spent a couple hours kind of just running around the world and kind of looking to see what you can do. It's really kind of interesting. It's I find it to be, I can understand why, just like anything else. I can understand how that could be a really big time sink where you could really lose hours and days out of your life in this game. But if you've seen online what these people have been able to create, like these, mansions and like these cities and rail systems, it's some of the stuff is just as far as like an architectural or just like a development or kind of an engineering thing or just something to play with artistically, it's pretty incredible platform. And really, I think the Pocket Edition, I believe, is $6.99. I think that's pretty much what it is on each platform. And that's a little steep for an app, but really probably what you can do with it. I mean, I play a little bit of it, and I can.
Oh, the hours of entertainment, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and really how you can do it. And now she's actually in Texas, and I was actually informed she's coming home tomorrow. I was actually informed that her stepmother had bought her the Xbox One version of Minecraft. So I can already see how now I'm going to lose my life to that. I'm going to have to fight my stepdaughter on getting some Xbox time when I can barely get it now. So that's going to be interesting. So I checked it out. It was pretty cool. I still don't understand what I'm doing. Apparently you can have two different modes, survival and creative. Apparently the creative mode has everything you need, so you can just build whatever, and you can fly, which comes in handy because you can get lost pretty easy because there's really no sense of direction. So I just play on the survival because I want to just kind of see from the basics kind of and it runs good on my 1520. It's nice. It's a big enough screen. Runs real good on my 6. I noticed that on my Nexus 7 tablet, I have the Flow, the 2013 Flow tablet,
okay,
the Wi-Fi one. If you take the rendering, the draw distance out too far, it starts to kind of chug a bit. And I think I haven't tried it on the other two devices on the phones, but I'm pretty sure if you probably bring it out a little bit, it's probably going to chug a bit. It's going to probably, but it's fun to play so far. I've had some fun with it. So far we'll see if I'm going to achieve epic status. I don't think so.
Modern day Legos.
Hey, I'm not that creative, but hey, I had Legos when I was a kid, and I wasn't that creative then either. So hey, whatever. So it's all good.
Yeah.
What about your? You have an app pick or a game pick or something that we could?
That's actually, Comic-Con out in San Diego is going on.
Right.
It might have wrapped up. I can't remember if it's
sure
now over. But anyway, we've got a new trailer for the Dawn of Justice, Superman versus Batman.
Oh yeah, I saw it. Oh, it's wild. Yeah. It's awesome. And I'm not really a Marvel DC comic book guy. I mean, I appreciate those things, but even I saw it and I was like, oh boy, this is going to be cool. I mean, even I'm like, yeah, I can't wait. But then they said Ben Affleck. I'm going, really? I don't know if I can get on board with it. And then I watch the trailer. I can get on board with it.
Yeah,
I
I
think I
know
can do it.
everybody's so worried about Ben Affleck. So it's almost like people think he's a terrible actor or something like that.
I think he's a good actor. I
He's
think
done
it,
some great
he's got
work.
too much. I think of Chasing Amy, and
Yeah,
I think of Good Will Hunting. I'm thinking Ben Affleck, and I just think of this guy. Again, it's one of those things where it's unfortunate because you shouldn't have that automatic reaction to it, because what has he done to cause that? Every movie he's been in is pretty good. He seems to be pretty talented. He's does comedy. He's done other things. So it's just funny, when I first heard it, my first reaction was like, really, Ben Affleck? But then I'm thinking that's kind of unfair. And then I actually watched the trailer and I was like, oh, okay, yeah,
oh, it looks fantastic.
I think I can get behind it totally. I think I can. I just hope it's not the Christian Bale, Bat Dad. I hope it's not Bat Dad, because you ever get a chance, watch that stuff. That's some funny stuff. If you ever get a chance to watch those Vines, they are a riot. I laugh so hard. Bat Dad is a riot. I'd like to have him on one time to talk about that. He'd be good. The stuff he does with his kids and his wife is hilarious. I'm surprised he doesn't get punched in the face more often for some of the stuff he pulls on his show. Vines, they're funny. So
yeah, so it looks like the premise of this, Dawn of Justice is that it's like the world is to a point kind of turning on Superman.
yeah, it seemed like they're kind of like, he's getting some hate. He's getting hate.
Government is, obviously, because he can wipe out the earth if he wanted to with, with his powers. He could be as evil as he wanted to be, and just cause all kinds of destruction. And then somehow, Batman gets involved, and he's like, hey, I need to, I guess, go after her. So there's going to be some interesting storylines with this. And then Wonder Woman's in this as well. And, you got Lex Luthor, who's played by Jesse Eisenberg, who was, well known from The Social Network, playing Mark Zuckerberg. And then I guess it was it Superbad? No, not Superbad. I'm trying to think of that zombie movie he was in with Woody Harrelson.
Zombieland?
Yeah, okay, Zombieland.
Yeah. That's another boy. You want to talk about a movie just like, what? Okay, yeah, Zombieland's pretty funny. It's almost got the Shaun of the Dead kind of comic thing to it. But
yeah.
That's another good. It's a funny twist on. I think it's funny. Maybe I'm sick about it, but I think I got a lot of laughs out of Zombieland. It was a great movie, but whatever. I guess to each his own, or her own. Correct? I don't know.
Yeah. So I mean, I know not a lot of people are used to seeing Lex Luthor with hair. So
yeah, it's weird.
Of course, before
bald Lex Luthor, it's almost like has to be that way. But hey, you know what? If you're gonna have change it up a little bit, it's different. I can't say I was like, oh, that's Lex Luthor. Oh, okay, yeah, it's not too bad.
Yeah, and let's wait until the movie actually comes out to see what happens to his hair. He might lose it during the movie. We don't know.
Yeah, he might cut it off right there on screen, and kind of like he might bick it right there on screen for you.
Yep.
Who knows?
You just never know. So no, unfortunately, we've got to wait until sometime in. I guess it's probably like May of 2016.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of time, but yeah, I think as more trailers come out, like the same thing with the Avengers, as we get another trailer, it's just going to build excitement. It'll be one of those that it might be a Friday night. It might be a Friday night viewing. I usually don't go to movies because there's a lot of people. It's always crazy, but that might be one I want to get on definitely the first weekend of its release. It looks awesome.
Yeah, so definitely looking forward to that. So we'll go ahead and move into the weekly poll question, and the results are in from last week's. Do you use ride-sharing services like Uber and Lyft? So out of the results, 29% people said that it's not available in their area. 26% says yes, and I love them. 24% says no, but I've been wanting to. And 21% says no, taxis are fine.
I don't know if I don't think Uber is available here in the St. Louis area. I don't think it is.
No, we've got a big movement right now that Edward Domain of Techly he's really calling in all his favors with his connections across the country, and a lot of people are getting on board. And yeah, there's a lot of pressure on the Metro Taxi Commission here in St. Louis right now.
Yeah, so I honestly. I don't think I'd use it. I don't know. Maybe it might be okay. It might work out all right but I just don't see myself being. if I use public transport, it'd be like a bus or a boat, a bus or a train or a
A
rail
bus or a
system.
boat.
I think a boat, whatever. I think there's ferries, I guess
Run you up,
technically.
go
Yeah.
hop across over to the Mississippi from
Hey,
where you live.
I got
And
a better chance where we
roll
live.
up.
We have a better chance of getting a boat that goes up the Mississippi than getting a rail out here. It's just like trying to,
Yeah,
pull
yeah,
teeth.
you're right.
But yeah, I just don't see myself using it that much. But again, I'm not in a situation where I would have to use it this time. Maybe if it was available and I actually had a situation where I had to use it, maybe I try it. And if I had a positive or a couple positive experiences, I might give it a shot. I just don't see that. It's something that like I have to have Uber here now so I can use it. I don't have that. It's not that kind of draw for me. So I'm sure it has. Apparently, it's successcul. It takes off. I mean, the other cities that have it, it's pretty popular. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
I can see myself using it when I'm up at the office downtown, and I'm probably only 10 or so minutes from Busch Stadium,
Right.
and instead of driving down there, finding a parking garage, waiting to get out of the parking garage after the ball game's over, just say, hey, pick me up here, run me down to the Busch Stadium, and then I'll catch an Uber on the way back.
Yeah,
I'd definitely do that.
All right, yeah, like I said, I guess the only thing I think about too is just the whole safety, security. Who's going to be driving my car, kind of thing. Who am I in a car with? I mean, they're usually vetted, and I haven't heard any like really kind of incidents about any kind of serious things happening with.
I mean, there's been a few but I mean, it's
nothing,
just.
I mean, you're going to get a
society.
Nothing's going to be perfect.
Yeah,
right.
You can do as many background checks as possible. Things are still going to fall through. I mean, look at Jared Fogle from Subway.
Look at them, the cabbies. They're like. There's some of those cabbies you get in the cabs with. You're like, well, these are kind of dicey. I don't know. So,
I think the boat, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. So I think they're not too bad.
Yeah. So pretty interesting. But our new poll question for this next week would be: which music service do you prefer for $10 a month? The options are Apple Music, Google Play Music, All Access, Groove from Microsoft, and Spotify. So the link to that poll will be in the show notes.
Yeah, I'll vote on the link, but also right now it's going to have to be Spotify because I've tried Apple Music and it actually is pretty good. I have to admit, but I only have so many. I don't have redundancy dollars where I'm spending $9.99 a month on multiple services.
Exactly. Yeah.
With the fact right now that Apple
Music can go with it.
Right, and Apple Music's kind of on Apple, and if I'm going to, I use my Windows phone mostly as my driver. So if I was an Apple, like for my wife and my family that really are Apple people, I would probably go with Apple Music. I mean, Beats Radio seems to be pretty well flushed out. It looks, usually in most situations, Apple usually when they come out with something, it usually is pretty well thought out. It's pretty well, and it's polished. It looks good. It's fairly accessible. Plus, if you're a Taylor Swift fan, that's where you go if you want Taylor Swift because it's not on Spotify. So I don't care necessarily. I'm not a Taylor Swift person, so it's okay. But yeah, I think right now, as it stands right now, because of the fact that I switch between platforms, I think for me, Spotify would probably be it's still my go-to. It works for me. It's not flawless like anything, but it's pretty much, it works for me for $9.99 a month. So.
Right. All right. So that pretty much does it for this episode. Again, I do want to thank everybody for their support and people that listen on a regular basis and watch and join us in the live chat. I do appreciate it. If you're interested in helping support the show monetary, you can again visit thetechinformist.com/support and find your options there, anywhere from $1 a month to all the way up to $50 a month. And if you're a business, we have advertising agreements for you as well. So would appreciate any and all support to help keep the show going. And again, another reminder that there will not be an episode on this coming Wednesday due to scheduling conflicts that I'm extremely busy the next few days. And Brad is doing his early shift as well.
Right. Sounds good.
So again, I'm Kevin Harvell. You can find me on Twitter at Kevin Harvell. You can find Sam on Twitter at, say it, Sam.
20 miles, 75.
20 miles, 75.
Yeah, I think we covered why that's to 20 miles. Like I said, I'm on the Twitter. I'm on the Twitter.
The Twitter tweets.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the little birdie chirps. So it's funny because I get that. That's not my wife gives me trouble because she uses the TMZ app on her phone, and every time it opens, it goes that dun dun dun. It makes that TM. I always give her trouble because I go, "Oh, watching your dun 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 again." She goes, "Shut up, birdie tweeter guy." Yeah, okay, fine. So she thinks I'm some kind of celebrity. Trust me, I'm not. No celebrity here.
Could
Not
be.
so much. Yeah, in my own mind, sure, absolutely. I'm like John Malkovich. I might hit my own head. No,
Right.
trust me. I've been me. It works out. 40 years. I'm still not that famous, so I think I'm like die is cast. I think I'm stuck.
There you go. Well, again, Sam, thanks for joining us today and stepping in Brad's shoes. I think you did a great job. So
Anytime. Thank you, sir. Like I said, any feedback, positive or negative, is good. Hopefully, I've tried to keep the distractions down. Nobody's coming in. No more parties, as the other people have made comments about it. I try to keep the incursions to a minimum. So, and
well,
I used that a couple
much
times.
better.
Hopefully, a little better in controlling my environment. I'm working on it. It's a work in progress, as always.
Yeah. Work in progress. Work in progress.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe the next time it'll be completely flawless.
Maybe. I doubt it. It's still me. I can't only,
life
if
happens.
I could, hey, even Albert Pujols only hits 350, right? That's his best year. That's 35%. If I can hit 500, I'm in good shape.
There you go. There you go. Everybody, make sure to, give us feedback, whether email, contact at thetechinformist.com or on Twitter. Pretty much that's the only thing I promote, Twitter. Just love it. It's
clean.
where we're most
easy.
active.
It works and we like it. So yeah. Any comments, any feedback would be great. And like I said, if any ideas, I'm totally, if I'm obviously just filling in for Brad. So it was great. I appreciate it. It was, I'm honored to come on and just talk. Hopefully I didn't try to bore too many of the people with everything.
No, I think it was great. It was a great discussion. Really
good. It's a lot of time, and anytime I'm available, I'd love to fill in any time as possible and keep everybody in the know and reach out and meet folks and get out in the social space. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it.
All right. So everybody, again, no episode this week. So, hey, if you haven't listened to all the episodes, it's a good time to go back and catch up. Yeah.
This is where you binge listen. You can do the Netflix thing, go back and binge listen. There's a lot of good content back there. Kevin and Brad are throwing out some good stuff. JJ's back there, and you got all sorts of good stuff.
You've got a heck of a history you can go back to.
Let it rip. You got 80 hours, man. Get in it, and it's free. Just go get it. It's there for you.
Free.
You do it. Yeah, go grab it. It's all there. It's like apples off the tree. Just pick them. And
meanwhile, while you're listening, tell a friend or 10.
Yeah, if you want to spread the love, spread the word. We'd love it. Make it popular. We get million subscribers. We're gonna do it.
There you go.
Starts one at a time.
One at a time. All right. All right. Thanks, everybody. And until next time, consider yourself informed. We are out.